JobPro gives you the ability to track stock at multiple locations. Now there is a separate video tutorial on the locations module and how to set up locations and the way a location might be relevant to stock that's from a sell point of view or from a rental point of view, or just items that you need to track like your own internal assets within your organization, like equipment, computers, etc. that might be in certain offices or locations. So a location has multiple uses. Even if you only have one stock location, but within that warehouse, say, you could have separate bays or separate areas that you've segregated for putting items in it, maybe in one area for sell use, other items for rental or use on jobs or for use for loans and things like that. So technically you might still want to have multiple locations in the system, even though they might be physically in the same warehouse or same building. But multiple locations can also be used for like multi-stores, warehouses that are external, like with suppliers, where you might have your own stock stored with suppliers. So once you've set up all your locations in the system, here we'll take a quick look at a list of different types of locations, like warehouses, offices for internal usage, an office or a warehouse that's used for rental purposes, etc. So once you have all your locations set up, if you need to set up multiple locations, you'll always have one location in the system, even if you don't have multiple locations. Now, when they're set up, the next thing is that in setup, for each identity you have, now an identity is like a multi-company feature, where it could be a multi-store or multi-offices or multiple branches that you might have within your organization, or departments within the one building. So in setup you can set up under My Company any identities that you like, and each identity will have a default location in and location out from a stock point of view. So if you've only got one stock location, well then it's always going to be the same location here. And throughout the system, if you're purchasing goods or selling goods or using items on jobs or anything like that, well then you're not prompted to specify the location that's relevant to those transactions. But this is also a method to make it easier, that if, for example, you're tying an employee to certain identities, well then for that employee, or maybe for a customer that's tied to a certain identity, then the default location in and out will be used automatically in various areas. Like on a shipping record out to a customer, it will default the location out based on the identity for that customer. But you can also override the default location in and out at the different transaction levels. So we'll take a look at that in a few minutes as well. So let's just go into the products module. There's lots more functionality explained in the products video tutorial, but if we just focus on multiple stock locations here, because that's what this video tutorial is about. So when we've set up a product and we've specified that we track it in stock, maybe we also track it by serial numbers, for example, then at the stock level, if you've got multiple stock locations, you can then specify where and what quantities are at each location. Now that usually happens automatically. Like for example, if you've put in an opening balance for a particular item, when you start to use the system, it'll prompt you to specify, well, what location is this quantity at? So initially we would have put in a quantity of 5 at this warehouse, and then these quantities have changed based on other stock movements. For example, if we look at the general tab, we can see that on a PO, a quantity of 10 was received in to the main stock location. An amendment was made for the quantity of 5 at that location, and then we did a transfer between the main stock location and this location for a quantity of 3. So that's how we end up with those quantities at these two locations. In this case, both locations are a usage for sell. In other words, all the stock that's stored in these locations are for sell purposes. But you could also have, for example, let's just add in a couple of these products to a rental location. As if we're entering in opening balances for these products in the system. So we need to specify the serial number for these two items because this item is tracked by serial numbers. So we'll just put anything in here just as an example. So now we can see that we've another location for this item with a quantity of 2 and they're for rental or loan use. So over here then we can see that there's a quantity in stock of 15 from a sell point of view, or there's 2 from a rent or loan point of view. Internal assets is blank. So we might have, say for example, if this was an equipment or a computer or something, we might have a list of those used in a building or in an office, and that would show in here. And that gives you your total quantity in the system for this particular item or product or equipment. And it spans across these 3 different locations in this example. So let's take a look at a purchase order. So if we wanted to create a purchase order to receive goods into one of these locations, the easiest way to do it is to actually create the PO from the location line itself. You can also look at the purchasing tab, and in here you can have multiple suppliers, but you can also again create a PO from here or create a PO from a supplier line itself. But let's just create a PO for this location where we want to say that the minimum stock or the reorder quantity is 10. Under normal circumstances you order in quantities of 10. So let's create a PO specific to this location. Here's a new PO, defaults to the current supplier, quantity of 10, and it's automatically going to be coming into this stock location here. Alternatively, we could have created a purchase order from the PO record and then we'll specify the supplier. But before we even add the product, we could change the location in for this particular items on the PO. So let's say we're going to receive on this item into, we'll say, stock location or training room 1, anything at all, and then we'll add in a line and we'll pick that product that we're using as an example, put in a quantity 4, and then let's receive those items in. So the easiest way is just to change this purchase order to received. So it's saying that this PO is balances to received and serial numbers will need to be entered because this item is tracked by serial numbers. So we click continue. Now we can either manually put in our serial numbers using a barcode or typing them in, or we can auto assign it just to do something quickly here. Click continue. So now we have received those quantity into this specific location. So let's go back to the product screen. Quickest way is to click on the arrow beside the code. And if we look at the stock tab, we can now see another location's been introduced into this product record for the quantity of 4 that we received on the PO. So there are various other areas in the system that are relevant to the multi-location functionality. For example, if we had a product that's made up of a bill of materials or costings, where you can specify in the costings tab all of the components or items that make up a finished product, you could then generate a job assembly for that item, and on the assembly tab you'd put in the name of the finished product. Let's see if there's something in here already with a, okay, here's one here, finished product, and we click on that, we can see all the items that make up that finished product. Now we have a problem with stock quantities, So we don't have enough quantities available. Well, actually in this case we don't have any available, but it's just some demo data. And so if we go back and return, just to show you the location element of this job assembly, because our identity is this company name, we've actually only one identity in the system. We could have multiple identities, and for that identity the location in and out happen to be the same location, but we could change that location. So we could say, stock location 1 or the Cork main warehouse is going to be the location in when we complete the assembly of this item, and the location out could be a different location for all the components that are being used to make up this finished product. So that's another area of the multi-stock location usage in the system. Another area would be, we've seen purchase orders already, but another key area is the shipping module. So the shipping module is used for not only outgoing shipping to your customers, but also it can be used for tracking incoming shipping related to purchase orders. So let's say you've got a purchase order to a supplier maybe over in China, and they may be then shipping those items. It could be 4 pallets of something on a ship, and it might take 2 weeks to get to you. So you can create a shipping in record in advance to track the shipping of those items related to the PO. So that would all happen from the purchase order screen, and you'd create the shipping record from there. Okay, so let's just go back to the shipping record, and in here then you would also see the relevant stock location where those items are coming into when you receive them. And you can also change the stock location as well if you've got multiple stock locations. In this case it's not letting me, because this shipping record is already complete, so we can't change the stock location because it's already basically received. But some of the other modules in the system also relate to locations from a very early stage. Like, for example, if you're doing a quote to a customer, at that point, based on the identity that you've used for that quote, which can be automatically, it's normally set anyway based on either the customer's identity that's tied to them or the employee's identity, then the stock location will default as well to the relevant stock location. So most of the time users don't need to go near either identity or stock locations. But if you've given certain individuals the access privilege to change the stock location in different places, like on a PO or on a quotation or on a sales order or an invoice or a job or anywhere where you've got a stock location relevant, well then a user can go and change the location. In this case, because it's a selling related module, quotes, sales orders, invoices, it's all about the stock location out. Where are the goods coming from? In other words, where are they leaving? And they'll be reduced from stock. So with this stock location set on a quote, if you've created or create a sales order or an invoice from a quote, well then it'll obviously also use the same stock location and the same identity. And you can see when you're looking at a quote or a sales order, there's a stock view section here where you can see if there's any stock available for certain products, and if there's a problem then to fulfill those, where you can create purchase orders for those items to fulfill stock needs. Same functionalities in sales orders as well. Now some of this demo data has quantities of minus figures and things in it, but that wouldn't be normally the case when you're using the system properly. If you've only got one stock location in the system, well then even the field stock location doesn't appear throughout the system. It's not relevant. In other words, there's always only one location for outgoing or incoming products. But when you've got multiple stock locations in the system, then you have the ability to view and edit the stock location in various parts of the system. So for more information on products and stock tracking, there's separate video tutorials for those, as well as the locations module.